It started with a quiet dinner at home. A bottle of red wine, candles flickering, a toast to success. But before the night ended, the same wine bottle became a weapon, a blunt instrument of rage. When the police arrived, they found Jessica Riley's lifeless body on the floor, blood staining the cream carpet, and her husband Marcus trembling as he delivered a story no one quite believed. What turns a household object into a murder weapon? And what dark truths can hide behind a smiling couple's photo on the mantelpiece? Welcome to True Crime Hub. In this 50-part series, we uncover the chilling murder of Jessica Riley and explore the hidden patterns of domestic violence, control, and psychological torment that ended in tragedy. Jessica and Marcus Riley were the epitome of the American dream. High school sweethearts who married young. They moved into a cozy home in suburban Portland and began building what looked like a perfect life. Marcus was a lead developer at a rising tech company. Jessica was a beloved children's therapist known for her calm demeanor and nurturing heart. They had matching coffee mugs, weekly grocery routines, Instagram posts of Sunday hikes and handwritten love notes. Friends envied them. Family admired them. But pictures never told the full story. As the years wore on, those perfect pictures began to fade. Jessica's bright smile became strained. She began missing social events, stopped calling her sister Natalie as often, and grew increasingly private. Natalie once asked, "Are you okay?" Jessica replied, "Just tired." But she wasn't tired. She was scared. She began writing it all down. In a leather-bound journal hidden in her nightstand. Her safe space. A record of truths she couldn't say aloud. Jessica's journal became her companion. It bore witness to moments no one else saw. Like the time Marcus screamed over burnt toast. Or when he threw her phone against the wall because she didn't answer fast enough. He never hit her, not at first. But words can bruise deeper than fists. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the quiet control. It built up like pressure in a bottle. A life on the edge. He apologized with flowers the next morning. Said he didn't mean it. But it's getting harder to believe him. Jessica wrote that 6 months before her death. Everyone thought Marcus was charming, polished, intelligent. At parties, he was the one refilling drinks, making people laugh. But charm can be deceptive. It can disarm. It can hide. Jessica's friends saw the cracks, bruises explained away as clumsiness, missed calls, a shrinking social circle. But no one pried. No one wanted to believe the Marcus they knew could be dangerous. He had secrets. Unbeknownst to Jessica, Marcus had 2 restraining orders in his past, both from former girlfriends who accused him of controlling behavior and emotional abuse. Neither case went to trial. Both were sealed. Had Jessica known? Would she have stayed? Would she have left sooner? We'll never know, because she never had access to that part of his life. He was careful. He curated his image. And she believed in love. She believed she could fix him. In the final year of her life, Jessica became more withdrawn. Her colleagues at the clinic noticed. She cancelled sessions last minute, cried in the break room. But when asked, she'd smile. Just a rough patch, she'd say. At home, Marcus resented her growing success. Her therapy program was gaining attention, and she was being invited to speak at conferences. He hated it. "You think you're better than me now," he once snapped. Her success became fuel for his insecurity. The last thing Jessica ever wrote in her journal. "Is getting worse. He doesn't listen. Doesn't talk. I feel like I'm living with a stranger. Tonight we celebrate the grant. I hope it brings a spark back. Or at least a little peace." She wrote that on April 17th. That night, she'd cook his favorite meal. Light candles. Open a bottle of wine. She had no idea it would be her last night alive. Jessica planned the evening with care. She made garlic rosemary chicken, his favorite. She set the table, laid out napkins, and even picked out a playlist of their favorite songs from college. When Marcus walked in, he seemed distracted, agitated. He poured himself a glass of wine before she could even toast. The conversation was strained. Then it turned. Marcus snapped about a coworker, then about her, then about the wine. At 9:12 p.m., a neighbor heard a loud crash, followed by shouting. Then, nothing. At 11:47 p.m., Marcus called 911. The call was calm. Too calm. "My wife fell. She's not breathing. I think she hit her head." When emergency responders arrived, they found Jessica on the floor near the fireplace. The wine bottle was shattered. Blood trailed across the floor. Her head showed signs of repeated blunt force trauma. It wasn't a fall. It was an assault. Marcus repeated the story. She tripped. She was drinking. But Jessica's blood alcohol level was barely detectable. Forensic investigators began to piece together the scene. The pattern of blood droplets, the angle of the wounds, the placement of the broken bottle. It all told a story. Jessica had been seated when she was struck. The force of the blow fractured her skull. Defensive wounds on her forearms suggested she tried to shield herself. There were no signs of struggle elsewhere in the home. This was targeted. The shattered bottle, with Marcus's fingerprints near the neck, was key evidence. But what sealed the case was what they found upstairs, her journal. The forensic team spent over 14 hours at the Riley residence. Every blood spatter, every smudge, every shard of glass had to be examined. The shattered wine bottle alone was key. It had Marcus's fingerprints high on the neck, where one would hold it like a club. Jessica's blood was found not just on the floor, but sprayed on the wall behind her. That pattern only formed under high-impact trauma. Detective Lisa Moreno, a seasoned investigator, knew what she was seeing. This wasn't an accident, she told the DA. This was rage. Focused, intentional. On Jessica's left arm were bruises. Not fresh. Weeks old. They'd never healed. A history of harm was starting to build. Dr. Evelyn Chong, the county medical examiner, released the autopsy findings. Jessica had suffered 3 distinct skull fractures. Each blow came from the same side. The wounds were consistent with a cylindrical object, like a wine bottle, swung with force. She had defensive wounds on her hands, forearms, and 1 fractured finger. Her blood alcohol was just 0.02, contradicting Marcus's claim that she was drunk. She didn't fall. She was attacked. Chong's conclusion was clear: homicide by blunt force trauma. Jessica's journal became the emotional core of the case. Officers catalogued it page by page. In it, she documented years of psychological torment. The writing was neat, orderly, as if she were organizing chaos. Some days I wonder if I'm going crazy. He tells me I imagine things. That I provoke him. But I remember everything. Last month, he grabbed my arm so hard I couldn't lift it for days. I wish I could leave, but I'm scared of what he'd do if I tried. Her final words: tonight we celebrate. Maybe he'll smile again. After the funeral, police brought Marcus in for questioning. The interview room was stark. A table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner. Detective Moreno sat across from him. "Tell me again what happened that night," she asked. Marcus repeated his story. Jessica tripped. She was drunk. He panicked. But when Moreno presented the autopsy results and the wine bottle evidence, his demeanor shifted. He fidgeted, then grew angry. "You think I killed my wife with a wine bottle? That's insane." When they mentioned the journal, he went quiet. Jessica's sister Natalie was the first family member to speak publicly. At a press conference, her voice trembled. "My sister was vibrant. Brave. She helped children heal from trauma while hiding her own. She shared entries from the journal. She called for justice, not just for Jessica, but for all victims too afraid to speak. If you think someone's suffering in silence, ask them twice. Don't stop at 'I'm fine.'" The community rallied. A memorial was held at the clinic where Jessica worked. Candles. Photos. Silence. 2 weeks after Jessica's death, Marcus Riley was arrested at his office. He didn't resist. He wore a crisp button-down shirt, as if nothing had happened. The media swarmed as officers walked him out in cuffs. Charged with second-degree murder, he was held without bail. The DA told reporters, "This case is a devastating reminder of what happens when abuse is allowed to fester behind closed doors." Inside the courtroom, Natalie clutched Jessica's journal like a lifeline. Marcus's attorney, Victor Bennett, was a veteran defense lawyer known for his aggressive tactics. His strategy was clear from the start: discredit the journal, cast doubt on the forensics, and paint the incident as a tragic accident. He claimed the journal was a personal diary, not legal evidence. That Jessica may have had mental health issues. That perhaps she fell during an argument, and Marcus panicked. But the evidence was strong, and the public was watching. News of the case went national. The phrase "wine bottle murder" trended for days. True crime podcasts dissected the journal. Online forums speculated about Marcus's motives. Some blamed Jessica. Why didn't she leave? Others defended her. Leaving is the most dangerous time, advocates reminded. Victims stay because they are scared, not because they are weak. Donations poured in for domestic violence shelters across Oregon. Jessica's story became a symbol. In the packed courtroom, The judge heard initial evidence. Forensics. Autopsy. Excerpts from Jessica's journal. Marcus sat expressionless. Detective Moreno testified. It was a targeted attack. The scene showed no sign of struggle. No sign of a fall. The judge ruled there was enough to proceed to trial. Marcus was remanded into custody. His family avoided the cameras. Jessica's family stayed strong. Marcus was placed in isolation for his own protection. In jail, he rarely spoke. Guards noted his behavior. Quiet, calculating, unbothered. He received few visitors. Only his attorney came regularly. He refused interviews, turned away letters. Meanwhile, Natalie was preparing for trial. She gathered Jessica's emails, photos, letters, building a timeline of abuse. He didn't just kill her, she said. He erased her voice. But not for long. The trial began on a rainy Monday morning in Multnomah County. Reporters packed the courtroom. The gallery was filled with Jessica's co-workers, friends, and former patients, those she'd helped, now there to honor her. The prosecution opened first. DA Elaine Porter delivered a powerful statement. This is a case of control turned to rage, of a man threatened by his wife's independence and success. He turned a bottle into a weapon, and love into violence. The defense followed. Victor Bennett insisted there was no intent to kill. This was a horrible accident. The evidence will show that Marcus panicked. That doesn't make him a murderer. The prosecution laid out its case meticulously. The shattered bottle, the trajectory of the wounds, the blood patterns. They called Dr. Chong to the stand. She explained Jessica's injuries in plain terms. She was struck with a heavy object at least 3 times. Her skull had 2 major fractures. These weren't consistent with a simple fall. Then came the kicker. The bottle had Marcus's fingerprints, positioned for gripping, not pouring. The handle was cracked inward. It had been swung. Jessica's journal was admitted into evidence. Natalie read select entries aloud. When he's calm, I can breathe. But when he's angry, it's like he becomes someone else. I feel like I live in his shadow, like I'm not allowed to shine. The courtroom was silent. Some jurors wiped tears from their eyes. Others clenched their jaws. Marcus refused to look up. Jessica's colleague, Dr. Layla Franklin, took the stand next. She had noticed the changes. Jessica had confided vague concerns but never specifics. She was tired, always looking over her shoulder. We offered support, but she kept saying she was okay. The prosecution asked if she thought Jessica feared for her life. Dr. Franklin paused. Yes, I think she knew she was in danger, but didn't know how to leave. Jessica's phone and laptop revealed more. She had searched phrases like, signs of emotional abuse. Can emotional abuse turn violent? How to leave a narcissist safely. A week before her death, she bookmarked a local shelter's website. She never contacted them. The prosecution used this to argue that Jessica was making a plan. A way out. And Marcus sensed it. Against his lawyer's advice, Marcus chose to testify. It was a gamble. He claimed he and Jessica argued that night, but she got hysterical. He said she grabbed the bottle first. That she slipped. That he panicked. The prosecution grilled him. Why didn't you call 911 immediately? Why are her defensive wounds on her arms, not yours? Marcus grew flustered. Defensive. Angry. It didn't help his case. The defense brought in Marcus's co-workers. Neighbors. Old classmates. They called him stable, level-headed, always polite. But cross-examination revealed cracks. One ex-girlfriend admitted to a past restraining order. He's good at hiding his rage until he can't anymore, she said. Jessica's boss described her as light in the darkness. That light was gone now. The courtroom sat in silence as the 911 call played. Marcus's voice was eerily calm. My wife fell. I think she's dead. The dispatcher asked him to perform CPR. He didn't. When asked why, he replied, I knew it was too late. A paramedic testified. She was still warm when we arrived. If he'd acted sooner, there's a slim chance she could have survived. Elaine Porter stood before the jury and delivered a final blow. Jessica Riley wanted to leave. She planned a celebration to keep the peace. She wanted one good night. Instead, she got her final breath crushed by a man who couldn't let her go. She pointed to the broken bottle, sealed in evidence. This wasn't an accident. It was the final act of control. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned. Guilty. Second-degree murder. Marcus didn't flinch. Natalie broke down in tears. The courtroom murmured. Outside, supporters lit candles on the courthouse steps. A mural of Jessica went up near her clinic, her light still guides. The sentence, 40 years without parole. The trial was supposed to bring closure, but as it began, old wounds reopened. The courtroom was packed, media, family members, friends, and curious onlookers. The prosecution laid out their evidence with painstaking clarity, while the defense attempted to paint the act as spontaneous and out of character. But the deep-rooted history of abuse made sympathy hard to come by. Witnesses recounted chilling stories. Neighbors remembered screams through the walls. Friends of the victim painted him as charming in public but privately controlling. Her colleagues testified about bruises she tried to hide and excuses she gave that never made sense. Each story added another brushstroke to the full picture of a life lived in fear. The medical examiner took the stand and confirmed what many feared. The blow to the head from the wine bottle was deliberate and fatal. Blood spatter evidence placed the victim at a vulnerable position, and forensic timing matched the suspected moment of attack. Emotionless, the defendant sat, eyes distant, expression unreadable. In an unexpected twist, a journal was submitted into evidence. It had been found hidden behind a loose brick in the basement wall. Page after page documented years of emotional manipulation, escalating threats, and moments of quiet desperation. It was her voice, finally heard. Jurors read the entries silently, some holding back tears. The journal included an entry from a week before the murder. "If anything happens to me, let this be proof I tried to survive." The courtroom sat in stunned silence as those words were read aloud. For many, that moment sealed the case. For others, it was a tragic affirmation of a life pushed to the edge. The defense responded by calling a character witness who described the victim as misunderstood, capable of change, and passionate about his family. But the juxtaposition between glowing praise and the horror of the journal's pages left the jury in a moral quagmire. Was it murder, or was it survival? Closing arguments were tense. The prosecution reminded the jury of the horror the defendant endured and the calculated nature of the killing. The defense urged them to consider mental duress and the breaking point. "She didn't wake up one morning and plan this," the defense said. But when she went to bed that night, she knew she had to escape. Deliberation took 2 days. Jurors were divided, but not over guilt, over degree. Eventually, the verdict was announced: guilty of manslaughter, not murder. The courtroom erupted in gasps. Some cried, others sat in shocked silence. The judge called for order. The sentence would be given in 30 days. At sentencing, impact statements rocked the room. The victim's sister wept, saying her brother didn't deserve to die that way. The defendant's mother stood too, speaking of her daughter's long suffering and how silence became her shield. The judge, visibly moved, sentenced her to 12 years with possibility of parole in 7. As she was led away, she looked back at the courtroom. Not in defiance, not in regret, but in peace. It was over. She would pay for what she'd done, but she would no longer live in fear. Outside, the media buzzed, headlines already forming. But inside those walls, justice had taken a different shape, one where truth was painful and healing uncertain.